Good and gracious God, open our hearts and our minds to hear whatever message you would have us hear this day. We give thanks, O God, that you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, we are entering the wedding planning season. You know, the one where happy couples, especially those that got engaged over the holidays, they start to plan and to anticipate every detail of their special day. Now, occasionally there's a glitch, an unexpected problem. Have you ever witnessed a wedding ceremony that has had such a hiccup? I have a couple of stories for you. But anyway, I found this clip on YouTube, and I just had to share it with you. So let's watch this short little clip.
Bowie.
It could always be worse, right? A wedding celebration that goes wrong is the bride and groom's worst nightmare. And so in our gospel reading from John, we come across the story of a wedding celebration that's going downhill really quickly. Now, Bible historians tell us that back in Jesus' time, weddings were often a 7-day party. And the family was supposed to provide food and drink and music and dancing for everybody in town for the entire week. Because, after all, undoubtedly you had been a guest at everybody else's wedding, and now it was your turn. You were obligated to do the hosting this time. And if you failed to do so, it was going to make you a social outcast. So when Jesus enters the story, the wine at the party has run out. So imagine the scene. Everybody starts getting really quiet, and people began to uncomfortably glance around, wondering what to do. It is the beginning of a major social crisis for this family. And that's where the life-changing conversation between Jesus and his mother begins. It's an ordinary event. Mary turns to Jesus and makes an observation. She says, "They have no wine." Now, perhaps she feels the pain of the host family. After all, she recognizes the social ridicule that they would have to endure. Mary recognizes the need, and she responds by bringing it to Jesus' attention. Now, Mary knows her son so well that she knows if she tells him about a problem, well, she suspects that there's something that he can do to fix it. But Jesus answers his mother, but not with a reassuring tone, but instead with what feels like kind of a snippy response. "Woman, what is that to you and me? My hour has not yet come." Now, it might have been one of those answers that could have been taken in several different ways. I kind of wonder how Mary took it. It might have been an answer like, "Hey, Mom, in case you've forgotten, I'm out of the house now. I don't take orders from you anymore. I only take them from God, my Father, and God hasn't told me that it's time to start doing it yet." Maybe. Or perhaps Mary heard it like this: "Mom, do you realize what you're asking? If I do that, if I become publicly known, the clock is going to start ticking, and time is going to move really quickly. Are you sure that's what you want, Mom? I don't even know if that's what I want." Imagine how Mary might have heard it. Well, Mary, like any typical mother, does not give up. She does not accept no for an answer. She believes that Jesus can and will do something to respond to the human need. And she acts as though this is exactly what he's going to do. And she goes to the servants at the wedding party and she says, "Do whatever my son tells you to do." I can't help but stop and think about the Marys in my life or the Marys in your life. I pray that we have all had that Mary, that person who points us in the right direction, that person who calls us to be our best self, that friend or that relative who keeps pointing out the needs of others, the one who is persistent in challenging us to go the extra mile, the one who calls us out of our comfort zone, the person who encourages us to say yes, yes to life. Think about it for a moment. Who has been that person in your life? Have you ever had the opportunity to encourage someone to be a Mary in their life, to help them move in the right direction? It is a holy thing to have a Mary or to be a Mary. And so the story goes on, and Jesus has this life-changing conversation with his mother, which incredibly, Jesus himself is changed. He changes his mind. He accepts the fact that God is calling him to start his public ministry. He recognizes the need and he responds. So if Jesus can be changed when he's confronted with need, then perhaps we can too. Now, the result is that Jesus does a miracle. He changes the water into wine. There were 6 stone water jars, and they were used for washing rituals. And Jesus had the servants fill them with water. Now, archaeologists have dug up this type of jars, and they have discovered that they would have held about 30 gallons. That's a lot of wine. Plenty more than could have been consumed by the guests for the remainder of the party. So when Jesus did is he provided a huge, overflowing amount of wine. So here we are introduced to Jesus' response as being abundant. He provides more than what the situation calls for. And just like the wine was in abundance, we know that other things are in abundance. His love is in abundance. His forgiveness is in abundance. It is overflowing. And we don't need to question whether Jesus is focused or if he's distracted. No, Jesus is completely and abundantly present with you and with me. The other point that the story tells us is that the wine was not the cheap stuff. It was not wine in a box. Sorry if you like wine in a box. No, the wine that Jesus made was the good stuff, the finest stuff. Jesus is aware that the young wedding couple would have faced social ridicule because they couldn't provide for their guest. And so Jesus gives them a gift. But Jesus' gift is not only in abundance, it is also beyond question. It's huge. Christ is not the one who offers us enough to get by, or a hand-me-down, or a cheap knockoff, or a this will do in a pinch kind of saving grace. No, Jesus offers us the way, a new beginning, a grace that cannot be measured. He does not bring a peace that lasts until the warranty expires or until the wine spoils, but instead he offers us the everlasting peace. If only we are willing to say yes, yes to him. So as we read this story, we might be tempted to ask, why? Why? why would the act of turning water into wine be the first recorded sign of Jesus' divine power? Kind of seems like a party trick, doesn't it? But certainly the healing of the blind or the curing of those with diseases, that would have seemed like a more appropriate event, a debut event for the Son of God, don't you think? But what we see is that Jesus recognizes the need and he responded. Jesus did not do a simple magic trick. Just like God did not send Christ to answer your prayers like a genie in a bottle. Jesus is not a good luck charm. Instead, Christ meets us where we are in our lives. At the wedding in Cana, he met the people where they were. He did not say to the wedding party, well, you have to prove to me that the need is legitimate, or after you accomplish this task to prove your loyalty, then I will respond. No, he saw the need and he met the people where their need was. So Christ recognizes our need and he responds just as he did at that wedding. Also, Christ does not say, well, I'm really interested in the major stuff like world peace or eradicating hunger, but really, don't come to me with your mundane needs. I really don't have time. Instead, Christ says, bring it all to me. Bring it all to me and lay it down at my feet. Christ doesn't say, I will magically heal you or I will solve all your issues. Instead, he says, I will be with you. I will give you comfort and I will give you strength. The truth of this story goes way beyond a wedding party. God uses the ordinary, simple wedding of a poor family to teach us how to recognize and how to respond. Mary saw a need and she brought it to the attention of Jesus. But then they have a difficult conversation, don't they? It's interesting to me that we see Christ's humanity in this story before we see his divine nature. He responds in a very human way before he acts as the divine. And this actually offers me some comfort because it reminds me that Christ can relate to the full range of what it is to be alive and the complexity of being human. His humanity allows him to recognize who we are and what we need because he's been there. And like Mary and Jesus, all of us are going to have some time in our life when we need to have a difficult conversation. When we need to confront the reality of need. And it's going to be unique for each one of us. It's the conversation about, is it time to sell the house? Or is it time to move into assisted living? Or is it time to find a new job? Or is it time to go to counseling? Or is it time to get our child evaluated? Or is it time to get the medical test? Or time to file bankruptcy? Or is it time to end the relationship? Is it time to look at your drinking or to enter hospice care? You can fill in the blank with your own, is it time? And when we're ready to have our own difficult conversations, we can be confident that God's grace will be there for us. We're not going to be facing those difficult conversations on our own. through Christ's example, we can be assured that when we need to have those truth-telling conversations with God, God's going to meet us with deep compassion, that God responds with grace, with unconditional love. But there's a challenge. There's a challenge in our gospel reading. There's a call on our hearts. Because as his followers, don't you think that we are called to recognize needs and respond? As people of faith, we need to be willing to recognize not only our needs, but the needs of others. And we need to have those truth-filled conversations. Those conversations have been in the news this week. This week, Bishop Marianne Eggert Buddy, she's been all over the news, hasn't she, for her words at a prayer service the day following the inauguration. Now I realize that a whole lot of people do not agree with her decision to speak her truth to the newly elected president in that setting. I recognize that. And I also know that there are just as many people who think what she said was speaking truth to power. We are not going to debate this. Don't get me wrong, we are not debating this. But I think that we can agree that she recognized a need and she responded as she felt called. Now, since none of us are bishops at the National Cathedral, we're never going to have to make a decision about how to publicly address the leaders of our land. However, we all are going to have moments when we need to speak our truth with love. We will have times when we recognize the needs of those around us, either our loved ones or complete strangers. And we're going to have to make a decision about how to respond. Because life is complicated, isn't it? And because life is complicated, in some circumstances, we may be called on to respond not just once, but as many times as it takes to face the needs that we witness. So I thank God. I thank God that we can hear the story of a wedding party gone wrong. And we can see a greater truth than just the need for another bottle of Merlot. Instead, we can see how Christ recognized a need and responded to the people. I find deep comfort knowing that Christ is responsive to my needs, to all of our needs. And it also helps me to be brave and kind, knowing that during all those difficult conversations in my life, I'm not alone. I can draw strength from my God. And finally, I am challenged. I am challenged to follow Jesus' example, to recognize the needs of others and to respond with compassion and with mercy. So my prayer is simply that we might all strive to be a community of believers who provide hope and encouragement through our words and through our actions. May we remember that we serve a God whose love is overflowing. It's overflowing. Thanks be to God. Amen.